Just going to check that it goes live here. I don't know why I don't think it's going to, because it always does right on cue, but there we go. So I'm just going to take that out of there. Good news. Hope everybody can share this. Hang in with Donny Schatz. Nice weather there at the moment for you. I hate having the weather conversation, but is it nice there?
Today was 68 degrees. Yeah, it was a nice, beautiful day. Like spring week, we're still getting the last of the snow melt and frost out of the ground. So it was well warranted, but it looks like it'll be cooler the rest of the week. So
Is this the best time of the year, or is it like fall? What's the best time of the year for you?
look, I love all four seasons here because you literally get all four. You know what I mean? Spring and fall are cool and can be wet and whatever, and the summer can be hot and dry, and obviously the cold in the winter. And I think it takes all of them to make you appreciate the cold and the hot both. I mean, I'm not a super hot weather person, but I don't. It's not. I don't know anybody likes to say they like minus 40 either. So it's you're happy when it's springtime, I can tell you that. And then after a summer of heat, you're like, all right, it's ready to cool down and kind of not mow your grass for 6 months. Just make you appreciate things in the right context.
Is that the best part about the snow? Not having to mow the lawn? I never thought about that.
Um, not really. I mean, everything just goes dormant. The leaves are off the trees, and it's just a different season. And look, there's something about Christmas time, and I never had that until COVID here. I'd never been home on Christmas Day till
Oh
COVID.
yeah.
I was always in Australia, so that was something,
Yeah, thank you,
and
COVID.
yeah, well, COVID did that, and obviously, to me, if you're not there Boxing Day, it's like the biggest slap in the face to Australian Speedway. So I guess, yeah, everybody wants to be home for Christmas, but it just doesn't work to be in America on Christmas Day and Australia on the 26th. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not even possible.
Hope everybody's tuned in. Could you share this? Press the old blue button and press share. Let's get the word out, because the Outlaws are coming back to Knoxville, and fingers crossed, everything's going to be good with weather and all that sort of stuff. We spoke to Chris Duncan last week about track prep and getting all that snow off the ground, and how cool that amazing new building is looking as well in turn number 2. So Donny, it's great to have your company. Premier Chevy Dealers are bringing you the nice energy drink World of Outlaws, which we'll get onto the Chevy connection soon about that. But one thing I do love about Knoxville, many things, Donny, is they're always investing back in the facility. I think every year you come back, you see something a little different.
Yeah, and that's what happens when it's, obviously there's the money comes from someplace, and as long as it's a state run or county run, you're going to have that. They got to keep investing in there, and obviously Knoxville, it's like a well-funded business, so you got to keep shining things up. It's just like being in the real world. We have to deal with that daily. We just don't get the money from the state or the federal government. So they do a good job of cleaning things up and trying to make it more fan friendly. Obviously, if we want to look back 30 some years and see what it was then to what it is now. I remember being at the Nationals one year, and we were in the infield and we had to leave our stuff there. It was storming so bad, and the next day everything was underwater. So, they've spent millions upon millions to ensure that everyone has a great experience. So it's really cool to see, and it'd be really cool to see a pre-progress to where they're at today, and honestly, what the future really looks like.
I know that you like to really bookend your time at the racetrack. You like to spend it back home when you can, and you come in and you sort of not minimize your time in town, but you definitely have a window of time in there. But one thing I do love is the drums, the school marching band drumming you guys as you walk down to the drivers' briefing, and that drivers' briefing is very unique. That's one of my favorite parts of nationals.
Yeah, it is. It gives you a bone chilling experience. A small Midwestern town where all those things that us kids grew up doing is still alive and well today, and that's really neat to see there. It's the only time we really see it at that place, but it is definitely bone chilling. It's almost like we should do a whole lap doing that and let the fans be a part of it. But it's
Yeah.
around the whole racetrack instead of just doing it down the midway. but it's definitely a cool experience to see the community support. And I don't think anybody has to explain the community support at Knoxville, whether it's people that open their homes to fans and race teams to invite them in, or the local marching band coming in and just putting the icing on the cake for the whole driver briefing.
And to the point about Donny, how you sort of come in and you do your business and then you leave. I remember last year, that street party, the really cool Knoxville kickoff party in the center of town there, and you were kind of in the Mexican place looking out, going, "What's going on out there?" And it's like, well, that's the kickoff party, which is the last 2 or 3 years been getting bigger and bigger in the square, and that has kind of been a little bit sort of platformed by the Fan Appreciation Day at the Classic, and it's a different model because the pits is a different situation as it is at, say, Premier Speedway. But I love that fan interaction and the way that you can bump into somebody standing next to you that might be in the A main that weekend, and that's something we do have over NASCAR and Formula One and IndyCar and stuff like that. We have that accessibility.
And I think that's why Knoxville has a reputation it does. I think that's why it has the history it does. And it's got the notoriety it does because they've always looked out for the fans, and they've always tried to go over and above and do those things. Believe me, there's a lot of festivities that if you it'd be fun at all the things you get asked to do that week. You'd probably have to clone yourself like 6 times, and you could send 6 of yourself out. But who they'd be sick of is they'd be sick of 10 of you instead of just 6. So that's just the way it works, and it's really neat to see. I remember seeing that last year, and as much as I want to go and be involved in it, I look at myself and go, well, I'm no spring chicken anymore. I can see what tomorrow's going to be like. So you just have to pass on it and enjoy it through someone else.
There's a balance, Donny, isn't there, between a respectful fan that just wants to stand back there and go, hey, Donny, yeah, as opposed to can we get, and that's ultimately what pays. Part of what the way you live is through t-shirt sales and fan support. But I know if I see like an actor that I really enjoy their work, or a musician, my first instinct is to go, I just want to walk up and say thank you for what you bring to the way I enjoy my life. Do you see a balance in that? Is it hard to be that guy, particularly on race night?
No, it's not hard to be that person at all. It's um the thing that I've learned over my years of this is there's things you could do absolutely nothing wrong in your own mind, and in someone else's mind it's going to be completely wrong.
Yeah.
Someone's gonna, you look at someone and they have a negative impact or a negative thought. And that's just the way it is. It doesn't matter whether it's racing or business or whatever. It's just standard hat. But I've come to realize that if you don't have bad, you don't have good. You got nothing to gauge it off of. Just like we were talking about seasons, you don't have the appreciation for summer without having a shitty winter. So you have all these things that they kind of balance it out. And there's no two fans the same. There's no, it's still good to see kids come up to you and look at you like you're a superhero. Cause that wasn't that long ago. Well, it was a long time ago that I remember being that little guy doing that. And believe me, I was so scared to death when I got within 30 yards of any driver like Steve Kinzer or Doug Wolfgang. I wouldn't get any closer. So the fact that, nowadays kids can do that or fans do that, we're readily accessible. I've never told no one no on anything when it comes to signing something or this or that. So, but you hear the stories of it in time. And so it's just the way it goes. But like I said, you got to have good and bad, and it keeps us all balanced.
Speaking of great supporters of your race program, Craig Ford has been a great friend of yours, and the Ford family, and the above and beyond that Craig goes to for even people like myself, making sure I had a vehicle. And when Kendra was there, and I know that Jason Reed has a vehicle, and when you come into town, he provides you a platform for transport, and he's been a diehard fan of yours for a while now.
Greg's an incredible guy, and it was really neat to what he's done for us over the years at TSR. It's just been phenomenal with all our different partners that aligned with him. He owns multiple dealerships under different brand names, and
Yeah.
and I really thought it was quite humorous when he got the Ford dealer in Pella there, and then it was Craig Ford. I'm like, how fitting,
Yeah, yeah.
So fit his name, but I tell you, I don't know that anybody that he helps could ever repay him back for what he's. I definitely couldn't. I mean, the things he's gone out of his way to always help. but I did take great pride in the helmet from the NASCAR race that when I ran the truck there. That was one of my finer moments, being able to go to his dealership in Pella and present him with that helmet, and see his dealer, and I keep up with him on his rock crawling, and he sends me pictures all the time of this and that, and his rock crawler's number 15. So, and obviously his door on his suite's all imaged up with us. So yeah, it's been a great relationship, and we really enjoyed, and obviously at the racetrack too. Everybody's it's not a small investment for him to make. And if I put his shoes on someday, and I think if I'm going to have something here at the end of the day when I get done, this is the first thing I got to get rid of, is quit spending all this money doing this. But he
Yeah.
doesn't. He takes great pride in it. He loves it, and um, ultimately, that's what you got to be happy with. You got to be happy with your decisions you make in life.
Well, as you know, I drove the minivan up to North Dakota to hang with you, and he's like, "Are you sure you're okay with the minivan?" I'm like, "God, I could fit, a few people in this thing if I needed to." Not that anybody ever rode with me in it, but I always say to him, "What can I do for you, Craig?" And he goes, "Just keep telling your stories." Like, he is just thrilled enough that he can provide me a conduit to get to places, to meet up and do things with your family, as a great example, and to be able to do that stuff. So I'm incredibly grateful for him as well. Some guy called Greg Schatz is watching at the moment. Uncle Greg, who is also a pilot. Seems like everybody in the Schatz family has aviation experience, though he did liken yours and your dad's flying style very differently to his. He said you were more of the cowboy, landed it in. Is that the way that it works there?
Oh, I don't know that. Look, the piloting thing in the Schatz family goes a long ways back. My grandfather, had a small plane way back in the day, and I think that's where my dad got into it. And my grandfather's neighbor, Wally Johnson, on the farm always had airplanes and had his own little landing strip right there. So there was always this, aviation thing. And obviously, my dad took into it, and he kind of pushed me down that path, and I'm glad he did, because it's made my life. Man, I've had a great life doing what I love to do, and I'm still doing it. And the end doesn't even look anywhere near in sight. So, Greg, I think Greg's. If I haven't flown with Greg in his. He doesn't have a plane anymore, but he had the tail dragger, and there's something about recreational flying versus doing it for a purpose. When you're going to go up and just start looking at things, and don't get me wrong, I look at a lot of things when I'm flying along, but I'm there to go from A to B. And when you go up and you're just recreational flying, you might just go have a time limit, say, well, I got 45 minutes. I'm gonna go cruise around. We'll see this, we'll see that. And it's just a different perspective. I don't get to do that often. So,
Yeah.
the other day was roaming across North Dakota on the way to Minot to the car show, and just happened to depict these little towns in North Dakota, and you could see where one had snow and one it was melted. It was kind of cool to see some things like that. But I don't know if Greg's a cowboy.
No,
I haven't flown with him, but yeah, but if he says I'm a cowboy, hell, I don't know. I don't think cowboy pilots live that long. So hopefully I'm not.
I think you, from all the stories I got told, and I had a tremendous time up your way, Donny. I've always wanted to. I just want to get to Minot next time. I don't want to drive a grader there like your dad did once, but the stories that people
You did
told.
get told some stories in, yeah.
But that was great, and everybody had a similar story how he liked to mess with people, all the time. It seemed to be he liked to mess with people to get that reaction. But and even stories about, reaching back and pulling wires out of the dash of the plane, literally while you're flying, and checking the emergency manual and stuff just to get a rise out of people. So it seems like his sense of humor is pretty legendary back in the day, which I think is where you get yours from.
Well, I don't know that I have my father was very blessed with the uncanny wit to talk to people, whether they were his friends or his employees. And he had a side to him that was super fiery, and I think I got more of that, because that's what you do as a father figure, is try to get the direction going the right way. But man, we've always talked as kids about how our dad always had all these sayings, and we should really write a book about it, and call it The Shit My Dad Says. And there's already a book out there called that, so that kind of took the wind out of our sails. But um just this last weekend, I was there for the car show and ran into a lot of his friends that are still alive. Some of them coming in wheelchairs, some of them, all telling stories. But yeah, there's a lot of memories that come with it. And he had a lot of great sayings and a lot of ways about him that you can't replicate. They're not going to come out of me. Some things are just how how your life path in life is paved. And my father left home at 15 years old because he knew everything and he was going to show my granddad. And the only thing that he could do was get in the military, and he got in the military and served his country. And when he came home, he somehow ended up in sprint car racing and met my mom and ended up in business. So he did okay. So we're pretty proud of that fact. And obviously, if you might see a little bit of me and him from time to time, but I think I have two sisters that he comes out in probably a little bit more, but it doesn't get recognized because they're not males. So, but we all have a little bit of an him, and I wish we still had his toughness, because I think we live in different times now that you probably need a little more of that. Some of us just weren't quite capable of the toughness he could provide.
Well, I mean, that era came where there was no filter, Donny. It was like straight from the hip, and I don't give a rat's ass how you feel about what I just said. It's how I feel, and that was proven. When he had people like the mayor and stuff like that in the city. He's like, "Hey, I know that road needs fixed. Let's go and have a look at it, and I'll show you what you mean." He saw opportunities and just went, "Screw it, here's my chance. Let's do it." Whereas others would have gone like, "Wait, what are we doing here, Danny?"
Yeah, there was no filter with him on that stuff. He knew exactly what he wanted, and he had a way of getting it across. And like I said, I wish I had paid a little bit more attention to some of the stuff. But it is what it is. It's he paved the way for all of us, and all of us are very fortunate to continue to do what we love to do because of his hard work and his ethics. So we'll just have to keep down that path, and hopefully we keep learning from some of the things that he taught us.
You have two sisters, you just referenced them. One of them is a badass on a horse. I mean, like, holy cow. Some of the pictures in the video that get around of Krista, um, where that horse passion has come from your mum and your dad, right?
Well, we grew up, not on the edge of town, and always had horses. So, people probably don't know. When we were younger, our parents were into draft horses and showed draft horses that were similar to the Budweiser Clydesdales. So we went all over the country and spent a lot of time in a motorhome, traveling, doing that sort of stuff. And really, we went to Canada quite a bit too. And my father was promoting our business and his business, and that's what he thinks helped get a lot of that Canadian traffic to come through there from bigger companies. And it was also a marketing scheme, just like what racing is. So yeah, we grew up around those things. Horses weren't really ever my thing unless they were inside of a V8 block and pouring alcohol on them. So when I got to the age where I could race, that's kind of when the horses disappeared, and it really took away from both my sister's ability to be involved in the quarter horse stuff, which now as you referenced, Krista's back into that stuff full time. And I'm embarrassed to say this, Wade, but I think I've only been to one of her
Yeah.
events, and it was in Columbus, Ohio, and it happened to be because we were on our way to a race in New York or something. So we went a day early to see her, and it just made sense. So, but I think there was something else we were doing there at the same time. We were coming to look at something, a
Yep.
business or something like that. So, but yeah, she's pretty dedicated to what she does. She puts a lot of effort and time in, and obviously, something pays a price for that. But that's just what happens when you dedicate yourself to, just like what I did. I've
Yeah.
reaped the rewards from it for a long time, and hopefully she gets to someday.
Donny, the shots women, the strength in the shots women is something that most people probably didn't know too much about outside your family. Although mum, you don't mess with mama shots either. Like she's very, very clear on what she wants at the t-shirt trailer and how she wants your career mapped out. And I spent a time driving to one of your outlaw races in, North Dakota, sharing the car with her. And just like Danny, she doesn't mince any words, but I saw a beautiful side to her. We went to the Dairy Queen, which was, such an important part of your mum and dad's life together. And we went inside with the girls and they were showing them how to make blizzards and, stuff like that. And I said, you should get Diane to make a blizzard. And the guy goes, absolutely. And your mum's eyes, boom, she was making ice creams like a little girl again. And I guess that just comes from the fact that people have to put a tough veneer on, Donny, but still at the same time, people are people, and important things are special.
Yeah, just a little advice, Wade. You don't want to get on the wrong side of any one of them. I can tell you that. Um, Prior to my father passing, it used to be 3-2. case you didn't know that, now it's 3-1. So as big a shit show as I can put on sometimes, it still doesn't even come close to tackling. But they're all pretty passionate, obviously. My mom's very well refined. I think anybody knows that behind any great man is definitely a great woman, and she's proved that over and over. And what she's done for me in my career it's unheard of. It's crazy. I ask her some days, why? Why do you want to travel around? And honestly, she'll sit and tell you she loves talking to the people. She loves the ideas, come up with selling shirts, and she loves running it just like she does her business and taking pride in it and trying to outdo someone else. That's what she ultimately loves doing. So
Yeah.
you got to respect that. And without what she's done to help me, and I get people all the time that'll come and say, I'm not much of a fan of yours, but I really love your mom. And you can't help but smile. And that's great, because anytime anymore when people come up and can tell you something, whether it's good or bad to your face, it makes you feel good, because most of the time they just take this and write something nasty somewhere and let it float out there in the World Wide Web, and
Yeah.
get some momentum. So it's good to see that still. But she's definitely pretty from the school of hard knocks, and I try not to piss her off on a regular basis, but it does happen.
Deanna and Krista, both as busy as they are with their own sport and their own careers, are particularly good mums. Like, they're very focused on their kids. No matter where Deanne has to be, there's softball, there's baseball, there's basketball with Gray, and of course, with Bergwander as well, and Layla and Amelia. And then on Krista's side with her kids, for as busy as they are, they somehow keep a very parental view of their children and very supportive.
Yeah, you can't deny that they are great parents. They are very actively involved in all their kids' activities, going here and there. I mean, it's insane. I honestly, and I sit and look at it, and if I had to be the pilot for them to take them where they needed to go, I'd have to hire 3 more people, because I don't know how they do it. But and they've both always been that way. They're great with their kids, and I think that came from great parenting from our parents. But yeah, it's that goes unspoken. It's pretty incredible. I I'm envious of that, honestly, and they're good role models for their children too.
I was watching you, obviously, watching the girls race, the late models and the sprint cars, particularly the late models when we were up there. And you didn't look like you really enjoyed it. Like, on one hand, you're proud and you can see why it's happening, but it's a harrowing experience for you watching those girls, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you don't think of it too much, but you know what can happen, and um and it can happen to anyone at any time. There doesn't have to be rhyme or reason. And I guess that's something, when you see your own kin or your own blood doing it, just take it next level. That's why I don't like watching it. I mean, I've seen some of it.
Yeah.
Um and I guess it's just, maybe it's uncle, and maybe it's because they're girls, and they got a little bit tougher road to hoe than maybe they're not, maybe not quite as strong as they need to be, but they've both been through some serious adversity with it, and here they are still kicking and clawing, try to do it. So you're not gonna, their background has kind of
Mhm.
shown them, I'm not gonna tell them that they can't do it, or don't do it, because they'll want to do it twice as bad. So you just have to respect their wishes. They know the end result. They know what can happen. They've seen it. They've been around it, and to me, that's just it's hard to watch. So it's just part of it. I don't know why that is, but I know it obviously those things kind of wear off and go away, because my mom used to be the same way, I believe, and obviously she's gotten past that, and now if something you crash, they know you're going to come out of it. At least they expect you to come
Yeah.
out of it anyway. So it's different for me. I know we have great stuff, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. You can have the best stuff there is, and if it's your day, it's your day. So I just hope that doesn't really happen to anybody anywhere, but we know
Yeah.
it does.
Donny, I only have really, Deanne's side of the family that I've really gotten to know too much. I haven't really got a chance to know Krista and Nick and their family as much. But spending time with the 4 kids, Deanne's kids, I was amazed at how genuinely not jealous and respectful and encouraging Gray and Bergwander were of Layla and Amelia. Like they were so thrilled that they had the limelight and there was people that cared for them and wanted to be part of it. I know you said to me, you're only seeing the good side, Wade, this weekend. Like they can be firebrands as well. But there's genuinely not, I don't think, any jealousy amongst the four of them.
Well, I think there's jealousy between two of them. I can tell you if Amelia finishes in front of Layla, there's jealousy, and if Layla finishes in front of Amelia, it's just the opposite between those two because they're competitive little farts. So, Gray and Bergen, you're 100% right. Gray's got his path with his basketball, and he enjoys that, and he's made some great friends and doing his own thing. Bergen's the one that I can't quite ever figure her out. She raced a little bit, and
Yeah.
I remember she called me one day. She said, "Uncle, will you take me out to the go-kart track and let me try the go-kart?" And I said, "Sure, Berg." So I took her out there, and we got the cart. We set it on the back stretch right at the opening in the gate. Fired it up for her. She gets in. She made a whole lap, stopped in her exact tracks that she left from at the back gate. Took 54 seconds plus. So she was idling, and she gets up and she says, "Okay, I'm good. We can go home now." And that's Bert. She wanted to try it. She didn't want to go fast. She just wanted to see what it felt like, see if it fit
Yep.
her style. And she'd had enough. She made a whole lap, and we were done. And you just got to let them do. And then I think later on she went on to run some stuff at the sandbox indoors at Cedar Lake, and enjoyed it quite a bit. But it's something that we've never pushed it on anybody. We've never pushed it on the twins. Never pushed trying to do this sort of stuff. I wish they wouldn't, to be honest with you, but they love it. So I'm glad that we only got two that are going down that path versus four, because I don't know how we keep up with
Yeah.
funding four of them. But yeah, they were right. There's no jealousy. They do their own things, and they know what the work is. But I think it comes from them growing up. They've been around my parents a lot.
Yep.
Those kids spent a lot of time with my parents, and they didn't let them get out of touch with stuff and out of reality, and they knew where things came from. And I don't think they take anything they have for granted anywhere. So it's really great to see that, and hopefully they don't lose sight of that.
Well, I mean, it was your dad, wasn't it, that really pushed, encouraged the girls to move into that path. And I think it was Lales that told me that beautiful story about, they remember when your dad called you over in around the hot tub and the pool and had the talk, hey, these girls need to be in a car and I need it to happen quickly. And they talk with such reverence about that. And I think it was Lales that told me the story about your watch. And I love that those girls have a bigger understanding of what this all means and where it's come from. It's not just like, oh yeah, I got a late model on a sprint car. They understand the commitment and the sacrifice and the passion behind it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's just how it went. I've tried to keep the reins pulled back on them, and only because I felt like when it was me and my dad and we were going racing and I was 14, 15, 16, we just went and raced and raced and raced and raced. And I never really caught on to what was going on because we were too busy going from race to race and playing helter skelter. And we live in times where things are three times as expensive as they were. They're just not three times as much fun. So you got to kind of take a step back and take it in stride. And you got to learn from everything you do. You can't have a night where you have everything go sideways and not understand what happened. You got to learn from every mistake made. So yeah, he got me, and that was kind of my doing. He was ready to get him in it, and I said, "No, they're not ready yet." And he knew his time was, getting short. So, he made us, get things in motion, and it was time. And just like right now, I've still held them back a little bit with stuff, and now this year they can go run some more 410 stuff, and we got a little more equipment accumulated and this and that. So, but they're 17 now, and now I think they're at the age where when they go do something, I think they're going to learn and be a lot more susceptible to it versus let's just imagine taking a 15 or 14-year-old kid and just say, "Hey, we're going to go run 100 races this year." That's great. You're going to say you got 100 races experience, but you could do the same thing with 50. You know what I mean? You could get this. You could be further ahead with running 50 if it wasn't
Yeah.
just bang 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 bang. And you got to learn from it. So we can't afford to do it with two of them to go all that racing. So hopefully we can get him at a point where someday we're playing pool and on the way to the races, to the World of Outlaw races, and on the way home I can be giving them a hard time because I ran third to them two, but that's probably a long ways off, or that's probably a little bit far fetched. You never know.
I did hear a whisper that you were thinking about bringing them into Knoxville at some point just to get some laps and see how they dealt with it. Whereabouts are you on the plan with that?
As soon as I can get them there to do something, we spoke last fall that I'd like to bring them there. I think they need to come there and experience at a test, or we were going to go there and test anyway at some point, and just to let them make 40-50 laps at speed on their own before they go there and race, and then have some time in between so that they can digest it. That'd be probably one of the bigger, faster places they've been in a long time, but that's kind of on hold at the moment, really, because the two motors that I bought for them are in the TSR trailer for me to use at the moment, and if we get those back here in due time, I'll get them there at some point. It's not something I plan on taking them there on a regular basis, but I do want to get them there when we get the opportunity to go test. And I feel like I can go there if I can be there with them and try to help them and get them somewhat comfortable going around there. And then they're going to go there and race at some point. And, they're at that age where I think they're susceptible to learning the things they need to now. So we'll just see what happens with it.
It's exciting, mate. They are two of the most marketable. I know you don't like me saying it, but it's the truth, mate. They are two of the most marketable commodities in American auto racing, not just sprint cars. The way they speak, they're beautiful young ladies. They're very humble when they do their interviews. They understand that they need to do the media stuff. And anyway, we don't need to, I know you're extremely proud of them as well. When it comes to Knoxville, we're heading there next week. You've got I-55 coming up. I don't know if you've seen much of Tolma down here at all, but Snow Rowett has done an incredible job of building his own I-55 in Australia. Have you seen any of that?
I've seen a few videos. I've heard a lot about it. I heard they took and copied Peely, but I also heard that they copied Parramatta and put it back in Sydney International Speedway, and that wasn't even close. So
No.
I don't really know what you believe when someone says they copied it. I have a little experience in that myself. My father made Red River Valley Speedway from a half-mile racetrack to a 3/8, and all we wanted to do was take it and condense it. Same, and it's nothing even close. So it's easier said than done. But no, I haven't seen too many videos, but I've had a few people send me a few, and that's great. In today's environment, to see new racetracks being built anywhere in the world, doesn't have to be just Australia. I think it's great. It's good for the sport, because we definitely all hear about all of them that disappear on a regular basis, and that's not good. But so I'm glad to hear there's some positive direction.
With all of your experience, as a driver, as as a team owner at one point as well, and with merch and with fan experience and all that sort of stuff, is there any way down the road one day when you're not so busy racing that you would consider promoting a couple of races a year? Because I think your experience in this industry would be very good at that.
No, we did a little bit of that. I don't know, I don't know that I have the insight to bring it to this level that everybody thinks that we need to get to. Honestly, I mean, I hear where we're at in this sport, where I hear all these guys that used to race with the Outlaws and going and doing these other things. They're saying we're gonna grow the sport, we're gonna make it do that. Well, what are you gonna do with it? Like, what's wrong with it? Like, we're bringing people to the. Ultimately, we got to have people in the stands, and now we know we have to have people watching online, but we can't just have people watching online. You got to have them in the stands too. So I don't know what this growth is or what it should look like. Apparently, all I know is I've been around the World of Outlaws for 28 years, and you don't get to be a series that gets to be 47, 48 years old without doing something right. Obviously, you have to adapt and change, but I just don't think that that's my forte, Wade. We had the racetrack here in Fargo, and I can tell you that we all poured our heart and soul in it. All four of us that were here in town, all of us but Krista. Krista was in Minot. And I don't think that there's been a time in our lives that we ever had more divisiveness in the Schatz family than having a racetrack, because my dad had a vision. I had thought this, and my mom thought this, and
Yeah.
Deanne thought something different, and we were using our employees to help and assist and do all these things. And I think the product was great, but to get people to agree on the same thing at a racetrack, I don't think you could take 100 people out and get two of them to agree on the same thing. I just don't, and it's not something that to me everybody thinks there's all this money made. I don't, I don't see it. But whatever. I just don't think that that's me. I'm not that person. You know, I'm hoping that in my future I have the ability to go racing with the girls, and whether it's to be able to have them on a team that I own, whether it's my team. But I think you can get too many cross woven things here. You can't have your race team racing with a series you own,
Yeah.
and driving with, those sort of things. I don't agree with that. So I kind of want to stay on, if they're committed to this, that's going to be my direction. But I obviously every racer has ideas, and I've seen some cool things. I think what happened at the Adelaide race in Australia last fall was great.
Mhm.
I actually had a great conversation with Paul Morris about it before it ever happened. He told me, he's like, "Hey, they'd like to do this, and all these things." And I was like, "Man, obviously we know it's not going to be, the best racing in the world because it's a
Mhm.
makeshift track and this and that, but the marketability, and sometimes you have to take a step backwards to go two steps forward." So I got to commend them on what happened. And obviously what you do with, trying to get your series going around Christmas time, and doing the speed weeks thing. So that's just, I enjoy watching it. I enjoy being a competitor on it, but I don't know that I'm cut out for that side of it. I really don't.
I've been fortunate enough to know you since you started coming, when on that World Series trail in particular back in the day with Luch and Cricky Motorsport and those kind of deals. And I know it would be easy to think you're a complex person that likes flying planes and technology and truck stops and things, but I don't think I've ever seen you as excited as I did for 9.99 steak night. Like, you're a man of simple pleasures, Donny. You were like, if you're coming to North Dakota, you have to come to steak night. Like, tell me about that. Why is that so cool to you?
I don't, I just live in a small town south of Fargo, and I don't know. I guess you live in times where, I'm used to going out with people. We go out someplace and you have a few drinks and you have dinner. Next thing you know, the tab's two, three, $400, depending on how many people you got around. And you look at what things cost, and our little local place over here, we started going there on Tuesdays for steak night, 9.99, and it's like, holy shit! And it's really good too. You
It is.
experienced it,
It
so
is good.
um you got to commend them for, trying to do something, and stick your neck out. That's kind of what business is, just, you know doing that from time to time, do something to try to make some money somewhere else. So I don't know, it's just kind of been a guy ritual. I've never really had any of those.
Yeah.
I've never, the two guys that work on the race car, and Brian, neighbor and friend across the river. And I guess it's my reason for us to all gather, and because I'm gone on Fridays and Saturdays when them guys are out having a few beers and this or that. So really it's my Saturday night. It's my Saturday night to catch up with everybody. And a lot of nights are have steak and go home, and a lot of nights aren't. Let's just put it that way. So
Yeah.
I guess I just kind of enjoy that. You try to make up for lost time, and I've probably made up for plenty of lost time.
I remember you looking at me at the menu and I'm kind of looking at it, and I think I said something out loud that wasn't steak. And you looked at me like 9.99 steak, buffet. Like, it doesn't get any better than if you can't buy that from McDonald's. So I was like, all right, I'm going with the steak. Um,
Yeah.
Knoxville has been an incredibly amazing place to you and your family over the years. It's also been polarizing. Fans have been pretty brutal, over the years. When you reach that point, you started winning consistently there, and I think in the last couple of years, and I think also your dad, his journey has been a big part of your own life. But at Knoxville, when you won your last nationals, the fans really had a bit more of an understanding of, how much it meant to you. So fans have always been noisy, no matter what, for you, haven't they?
That's what you expect. I remember it felt like the whole place was cheering for me when I ran second, and I ran second, and I ran second, and I ran second. And they cheered even when I won, and then it started to kind of die off. And it's just the nature of the beast. I was a kid once, and I'll admit I sat on the back stretch, and when the beach ball came to me, I knocked it off the back. And some people go there to be dig into the race, and then some people just go to have a good time. It's something to do, and you're gonna have it on all fronts. But I'm glad they at least have a reaction. It's not something.
Yeah.
Believe me, there's nothing cool that I've ever found that um getting booed by anything. And when it first started happening, I just kind of it literally feels like you've crapped your pants and you got to go walk in front of everyone so they can see it. It's kind of what it makes you feel like. And you're like, hang on, I didn't crap my pants here. So what did I do wrong? And 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 it really never hit me until after it happened a few times pretty profusely. I'm standing with all these guys at the driver intros. And right before I come up, they all start looking at each other, smiling, like waiting to see how big it is. And I'm like, you know what? At this point, it's a compliment.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's kind of stupid to say, but you have to take it as a compliment at some point. And I still don't condone it. I don't go boo anybody. Believe me, I've done it in my lifetime. I've done it a long time ago. But once it happens to you,
Yeah.
you take a new appreciation for some of them words never coming out of your mouth again. So it's just part of it. I- when you do it, the place is plumb full, and that's the most important part. We got people in the stands, and they obviously came there. They came there to cheer. Someone came there to cheer. Someone came there to boo. That's what it is. It doesn't say when you buy the ticket that you have to come here to cheer. Here, when you pay to get in, it's literally what you make of it. And I always reference Steve Kinzer in this scenario. When I started with the Outlaws in '97, you know how Steve Kinzer someone had to tell Steve Kinzer they didn't like him or he was this or he was that. They had to go buy a pit pass or go to a race and then go walk up to him and say it. And in today's environment, you can be whoever you want to be on social media and you can say whatever you want and there's no repercussion. And so it's just different times, and you just have to adapt to it. And like I said earlier, you don't have bad if you don't have good. So they go hand in hand.
The last couple of years, I've been very fortunate to, go out to PA, the Midwest, go to California, and then last year I went up to Skagit in Washington. And what a beautiful part of the world that is! And I was really thrilled to see that Canadian fans get right into it. The Oregon, the Washington, that Northwest coast as well. But I've never experienced anything like Pennsylvania, Donny. I went to the Grove, to the Natty O, and I stood on Beer Hill there, and Beer Hill screams out, "Infield sucks," and then Infield yells out, "Beer Hill sucks." And I watched you push around and push off in turn three right at Beer Hill, where they really give it to you. Do you do that on purpose?
No, that's where they make a stage. It's just back in the day when Ted Johnson was still alive. He I pissed Ted off one time, and he wanted to get me back. And how he did it was he come to me, and Ted was very intimidating. He'd come, and when he came to you on the golf cart and stopped and said, "Get on," you got on, and you better be ready to have a serious conversation. So I get on and I'm just, oh my, what's coming? What I do, what I do, what I do. And he goes out on the back stretch at Williams Grove. And we're going down the back stretch, just like the cars go down in between the infield and Beer Hill. And he's going slow. And they're throwing beer cans and they're throwing hamburgers and they're throwing stuff left and right. And Ted looks over at me laughing hysterically. "If you ever do that again, I'll." That was his punishment to me. And I don't even remember what he was mad at me because I was dodging beer cans and hamburgers. And at the end of it, when we got done, he goes, "That's why these people come here. They come here to race, but they have passion. And when you have passion, you're gonna have all that. You're gonna have both sides. It's fun to go there. The fans there, it's crazy. If you go there on a weekly deal, they'll hate this local and they'll hate that local. But when the Outlaws come there, they love all the locals. And that's what it's all about. So it is definitely one of the most passionate places we go. And but no, I never parked there intentionally because you just never know what's gonna happen. I about got knocked out by a full beer can there one time. It was too close for comfort, but it's part of the fun too.
I think, and you get to remind them too. How many times have you won the Natty O now?
Yeah, I stuck my foot in my mouth that they were yelling at me one year and I got the opportunity, but I haven't got to do that since. So sometimes you got to be careful because karma will kick you right in the ass.
So tribal rivalry is what
I won it
makes
6 times, but
yeah. Tribal rivalry, Donny, is what makes great theater and it makes great sport. And I'm watching on Netflix at the moment the Vince McMahon documentary series on what a great promoter he was of that good guy bad guy thing. And you go back to the Detroit Pistons and the Chicago Bulls. Like when you played Detroit, you knew it was going to be on. Ford and Chevy are the most traditional form of rivalry in motorsport throughout most of the world. And obviously, for several years now, you've been running Ford Motors, and it's been a very big talking point. And just recently, it's come out that you're going to be running Chevy for at least the foreseeable future. And could you maybe just explain to folks what's brought that turnaround, and has it been a long time coming, or was it like we need to do this now?
well, let's just back up a little ways here. Being a part of Tony Stewart Racing, we've had great partners since the day I've been there. And Tony's had an affiliation with all major brands over his years. And if you look back far enough with the TSR 15, we were partners with the people at Chevrolet for the longest time.
Yeah.
And when we get to know all these people that are our partners, it's not just they don't just send checks. You know what I mean? You do things together. You communicate. You go places. We do things to activate. That's just all part of it. And this is always stuck in my mind. Mr. Jim Campbell, who's the president of Chevrolet Performance, used to tell me when he'd come to the races that he it was all brand recognition for him because Chevy didn't make any of those parts in those motors. They didn't make the block. They didn't make the heads. Yeah, it was a Chevy base design, V8 with the bore spacing 400, whatever you want to call it. But Chevy never sold any of those parts. They never made none of them. It was all copies of their stuff. So it was brand recognition for them. Our journey with Ford was much different. We got to be in on from the word go, from this being on paper and having some of the brightest mind in the sport, Rick Warner and the engineers at Ford. There's been several. We got to build exactly what we felt like was there. And, obviously Doug Yates was involved and Andy Durham and Ron Shaver. So you take the most brilliant minds in all of motorsports and to this day, it's still probably one of the most beautiful products that ever masterminded there is. And we've worked diligently and tirelessly. I think we've all had a lot of sleepless nights. We've all had a lot of heartache, but we're backed into a corner at the moment with being able to get stuff. A lot of the stuff that we've been using. Last fall at Charlotte, we had a lot of issues where we changed a lot of things each night and to get through. And it basically because everything's wore out. It's the stuff that's original from 18 and 19, and you can only fix and rebuild so much before things start to go sideways and break. And we're unable to get stuff. It's not where any of us want to be. Believe me, I don't believe that it has to do with all performance. I think that's in the back of everybody's mind. But at the end of the day, we're the ones going to the races every night and trying to make things better. And believe me, we're not just going there to go, because in case anybody wants to understand how I get paid, it isn't a salary. No, Ford doesn't send me a check. Tony Stewart doesn't send me a check. I'm 100% performance based. They don't pay on lack thereof, performance from lack thereof. So it just is what it is. So if we're falling out of races or we can't keep going, Tony's the one that, ultimately made this decision, and obviously it affects probably him the most financially, but I guess Tony's never been scared to confront anything head on. And I tell you, part of me feels like a complete failure in the whole situation. And it's because we tried to get things to where we felt like we needed them and you keep going, but at some point you have to, change things up. And obviously that's what's happening. So all I can do is continue to go forward. And I think when they get things under control with being able to get stuff, maybe be able to get back to where we were and try to regroup. There's been a lot of little things. Look, when things like this happen, everyone thinks they have the answer. There's a guy sitting out in Pennsylvania thinks he's got all the answers, that has never ran one of these and doesn't know what things cost and this and that. And there's guys all over that hell, I've had people, say this and this and this. There's not a single person, not even me, that's going to know all the little details that go into what it takes to make this work and what's happened here. So I just wish people didn't speculate and this and that, but that's just part of it. They're going to. So we'll make the best of it, and at some point we'll get ourselves maybe going back down that path. But who knows? For the foreseeable future, as you know, we're scrambling to. Obviously, two of my motors are in the trailer that I've robbed from the girls, and they even told me they want to see us run better. They'll forfeit their stuff for me to go. So we hope we don't have to use them, but it is what it is. It's not where any of us want to be. It's not what any of us had envisioned, but it's what's in front of us. And that's what this sport is. We've worked at it diligently to try to make the best out of it. And unfortunately we're in a bad spot at the moment.
I mean, when you look back on it, you've certainly had some great victories, with Ford motors. Tony has been particularly competitive with those motors. Kerry Madsen, when he drove, the Tony's second car, he was outstanding with the Ford motor. So I don't think you could just singularly put it in one corner and say, well, it's an F problem, because that is clearly not the case.
No, you can't single-handedly do that. And you try to, when you sit and look at, you look at it this way, and this is how I referenced it to my race team. I said that the opportunity for passing cars is the windows become so small. You know what I mean? And I've been very fortunate over the years to be in that position where we were a little better than everyone else. And it's getting out of the corner. You got to be able to get out of the corner. You get that position on them out of the corner, because you can't just always go dive bombing and doing those sort of things. So when your window's so small to begin with, and you're trying to race against everything else is that way, and you're lacking in that area. Okay. You're lacking trying to get things going off the corner. You can't make up for it the other end. And, that's just something that we've worked and worked and worked and worked and tried to, to get it in the right spot. And maybe we're just not doing the right things. I don't think that's the case. We've give it a lot of tries, but no, it's not all, it's not all. You can't just blame it on Ford for anything. There's things that they've dropped the ball on, for sure. But that's just the nature of the beast that happens to the best of them.
Donny, has that put a renewed focus on your relationship with Jack Elam, with the J&J side of things? You go, okay, well, if we can't necessarily make the progress here, do we try and get even more out of our chassis or our shocks? And have you had to look at different elements of the car?
No, I've had people say it has nothing to do with this. It's your car. It's this and that. Look, anybody can say whatever they want. I won 10 World Outlaw championships in that car. I won 11 Knoxville Nationals in that car. I won 5 Kings Road. The list goes on and on and on. You're not going to sit here and tell me that those cars don't work, because I know better. I know what they're supposed to feel like. I know, if someone wants to go buy one and prove me wrong, go right ahead. It's kind of the way I look at it. I feel like I'm a pretty loyal person.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've been with Jack since 2000.
Yeah.
And honestly, there was a time when I was probably the magic of the day type guy, swap cars or looking for a better motor builder, looking for all these things. And Kenny Woodruff was the one that kind of broke me of those habits, racing with Kenny. Kenny just put it to me one night when, things weren't the greatest, when we were around 7th or 8th, and I was mad, and he was like, well, what's the problem? And I said, well, the car just wouldn't do this and this and this. And he said, so why don't you just pull in and have an ice cream cone or something? And I'm like, well, why would I do that? He goes, well, you could always try to drive it different or try to make up for it, because once you get on the racetrack, Donny, he goes, I can't do a damn thing for you unless you come in the infield. And he said, if you come in the infield, I'm going to have the lights on the truck. We're going to be ready to go home. So, sometimes you have that tough love, and Kenny's 100% right. That was this very exact same thing like my father would tell me, but
Yeah.
um, you have them things get ingested in you, and I firmly believe that's why I have learned to change my driving style. Sometimes maybe too much. I mean, if you Rick used to tell me that all the time. He'd say, "Man, I only got one lap of the night to be able to see what the car is actually doing before you start adapting, and it's the first lap of hot laps." So,
Yep.
you just do it non-consciously. You don't even know what's going that you're doing it because you've done it so much. You try to adapt, and sometimes you just do it, and you don't even know what's going on. So just part of it. But
And to
I'm a pretty
clarify,
loyal person to Jag.
And to clarify, Donny, what I meant by that is not that the car wasn't performing, but do you look at other elements of the chassis and go, all right, we need to compensate for this if we can't get that? So I'm certainly not challenging, Jack's ability or
Nope.
your loyalty to him in how I said that.
Believe me, Wave. We've tried 100. We've tried a lot of different things, and there's so many things anymore.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, the one thing that um, go down this rabbit hole, I guess. The We're all on the same tires, and you look back far enough. There used to be choices. You had different manufacturers, and you knew when you went here, this one
yeah,
that creates a whole different mix of racing. When everybody's on the same tires, it kind of makes the box a lot smaller. And I think we all know in this sport that there's people doing things to tires, and there's doing things outside the rules that we all know affect greatly what's happening. And that's another factor you deal with on a regular basis. So it's just part of it. You don't stoop to those levels. You just keep working and keep your nose down. I have a great group of guys right now. I got to tell you, racing with Scuba, the long we did, we feed off each other's personalities, right?
yep,
And Scuba was more of a Kenny Woodruff personality because he spent a lot of time with Kenny. He was rough and gruff. So
yep,
that's how I was. And that's how that's why some of the other guys never really cared for that environment because they weren't used to that. They didn't grow up around it like Scuba and I did. And it had a little, some people didn't like it, some people did, but we had success with it. And obviously Scuba's stepped away and doing something different. Now you're racing with different guys. And I got to tell you, you have to be like your guys. You have to fit in with your guys' personality. And I can be whoever I need to be um to win races. And I got a group of guys now with Todd
yeah,
who's we have a long history together, you know, going back 25 years. And he stepped into the role and he's doing his best, and we're trying to help him with it every day and get a handle on things. But the other two guys, they're guys that, they're
yeah,
Woodman's a fist pumper, and I'm not gonna lie, it's a change of pace. It's different. And every night when I get to the track, um, and he gives me that fist pump and smacks me up alongside of the head, I'd be like, "Hold my beer, I'll be right back with a trophy." So I got to get that damn trophy here soon. But I'm just saying, you feed off each other in this. You always have, and it's a different pace. It's one that we've not had for a while. It's just something different. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but so it's different, and it's my job to make sure that I fit in with those guys because they're the ones busting their butt. They're the ones going through all the agony and ripping up and down the road and all the sleepless nights while they go to the car wash and I go to the hotel and have a beer. And you know, they do all the hard work so that I can do what I love to do. So I'm pretty pumped about my current situation with my guys. I think that the
good.
atmosphere is something it's been a pretty good change. I just wish we had some better results to show for it, and they'll come. I think we all know that. So Rome wasn't built in a day, and look, we're racing against some pretty stout guys and some guys that have been around a long time, and some guys that are really starting to come into their own, and some young guys that are next level. So it's nothing to shake a stick at. So I guess the nights that you run seventh or eighth that you think are pretty shitty
Mhm.
right now for us, that's pretty good. But you got to get there and then you build on it, and we're definitely doing that. So we'll see what happens.
So Peevely coming up this weekend. You won there last year, had a stout drive, actually came from, deeper in the pack to get that done. Then we head to Knoxville the following weekend, which is what we're here to talk about this weekend. Big 2-night show, the Outlaws. I love that shirt, the Knox Father. I know your mum, I think it's probably her favorite shirt actually, which is super cool for all that too. You're only going to have 1 or 2 races on your own motors by the time you get to Knoxville. Is that just a process you have to get through to get comfortable, or you feel like it's just going to slide in?
Yeah, I think we'll be all right when we get there. You know, Knoxville, the bigger tracks are places that we really didn't struggle as much because we were, had no problem on keeping things up to speed like Eldora. Knoxville, we did have a little bit of trouble there, trying to get things going off the corner. And obviously that it's going to be different this time. So I guess it'll tell the story. But the short track stuff is where we really struggle the most trying to get things sorted out. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting there. I'm looking forward to seeing what it brings. I think when we were talking the other day, me and the guys, we haven't had very good luck getting this Knoxville April race in the past. I think the last time we got it in was when we had COVID, and I remember that where we wasted 5,000 pens signing in, and now we all know it was for a damn joke or whatever. But um, looking forward to it. Hopefully Mother Nature plays nice, and we'll get there and see. I know I've seen the videos of the Duncans running the road grader, so I know they're burning some diesel fuel. I'll be curious to see what things are like when we get there.
I heard a little bit of Donny Schatz in that last couple of lines, and I do love the way you the old dumpster fire life was one of my particular favorites. Man, I'm a Ford guy. I vividly remember the Viver and Casey Luna Ford back in the day, and certainly Ron Shaver and the incredible work he's done. But I'm also a fan of sprint car racing, and I think this is a really exciting time to be a Donny Schatz fan, to see you back with the bow tie, and for however long that takes, whether you end up running the nationals in it or the rest of the year in the Chevy or however that works. I just want to see you up and about, mate, because when Donny Schatz is winning, I think the sport is winning as well. So, and I can't wait to see those nieces of yours doing some laps at some point around the Marion County Fairgrounds.
Yeah, I'm ready for that. It's long overdue. Like I said, I've kind of crippled their progress a little bit, trying to keep them, get a little more experience under their belt before we could do some of that. But it's time, and we'll just see what happens with it. I don't know what their expectations are. I don't even know what you'd set for realistic expectations on going there. But they look, I can't. The late models, I've always enjoyed them, but it didn't really feel like I was ever any good at them. And both of them, when they've gotten them, have adapted to it quicker than I did. And maybe it's because they don't have all the habits and in the thought processes that I've acquired over the years that are maybe stuck in MS DOS format. So we'll see. Curious I know what's going to happen. We're going to get there with the late model and the next, or the sprint car, and the next thing you know, they're going to be like, "Can we go there in the late model?" and whatever. It's because that's just how it works with them. But believe me, they'll find. I think they're going racing this weekend, so hopefully they get that itch scratched here, and we can get them going and get them settled down a little bit.
Are you not going to tell me what you call a late model? Do we not call them anymore?
Well, look, there was a time that I used to call it a shit box
With
but
rivets?
with rivets, yeah. But that's before I got one. Look, we all, it didn't. They weren't really on my radar until I went and raced the Prelude with Tony, and I fell in love with the thing. And I've had to tell that story. And look, I've become great friends with a lot of late model
Yeah.
guys,
Yeah.
and going to some of that stuff. I've had some of the times in my life going with those guys, and some days I reference what they do a little bit more full circle than
Yeah.
sprint car racing, because those guys all stay in the truck together. They all make food together. They all share a shower in the, to get, and then they work on the cars and they eat, sleep, and drink it. And it's just a different perspective. And sometimes it's kind of eye opening. And there was a point when I thought, you know what? I like this late model racing because there's absolutely zero drama in it. There's no bullshit. No one says bad things, but they proved me wrong on that. There's as much BS, and any type of racing is what we deal with on a regular basis. But some days I think it's a little bit more full circle the way they look at it. Them guys understand they can't pull into a racetrack and race for 200,000 to win with 25 people in the stands.
Mhm.
And that's something, because they're all spending their hard-earned money to do it. Not all of them have people helping pay the bills and partners. So to
Yeah.
me, it's a little bit more user friendly from all aspects. And I wish sprint car racing was a little more like that, but I don't know that how you control it. So I think it's too far gone to be able to do that, but I still love it.
Yeah, cool. The victory lane looks amazing at Knoxville. They've done a fantastic job. Jim and the Banner Boys have got a really cool Premier Chevy dealers victory lane, the most famous right-hand turn, and all the sprint car racing looks Mickey Duck. Hopefully you get to go and check that out and do that right-hand turn next weekend, April 18 and 19 at the sprint car capital of the world. Danny, thank you so much for your time. Donny, we've talked a lot about your dad, Danny. We've talked a lot about the future of Chevy, what you're doing with Ford, what the girls are doing, family. I love that we always get to talk about this. And $9.99 steak night. That's what I'm coming back for. I can't wait, mate.
Well, it depends what day it is. We found a steak night on every night of the week. So, but none of them are $9.99, just so you're clear. So
I want to go flying with you. That's one thing I really do want to do is experience what it's like up there, and you can crank up that motley crew because I do like the tunes you roll.
I'll take you to Minot, where I grew up, and take you for the best breakfast you ever had, the 99. What my family's, I wouldn't say famous for, but it's hash browns and scrambled eggs and ham, and it's pretty notorious in Minot. I just got to eat there on Sunday, so that's why my cheeks are probably a little full at the moment. But yeah, we'll go up there, and you'll probably have some of the best food you've ever had, and I'll show you where I grew up. It's a great place to go. Without growing up there and in the background and what we have, I'm not sitting here today doing what I love to do. So I still enjoy getting there. It's just where I live now allows me the opportunity to be here a lot more. So because it's another 280 miles up the road, opposite everything we do. So, but we'll definitely get you there and I'll take you for a ride and show you the tunes and how to kick back and enjoy it in the air. And then when I need a nap, I'll just tell you, you got to listen for this, and I'm gonna take a little nap.
Yes. I'll
I
start
did that.
pulling
I did that.
cables out.
I did that to loads. I did that to loadsman.
Oh,
one
did
year,
you?
and yeah, I did. I did it to Brett. We were going to New York, and it was when we had the racetrack. And I just said, Brett, I just need 5 minutes. I just need 5 minutes here. And I was joking with him. I wasn't going to do it, but anyway, I said, you just listen for this tail number, and then you wake me up if they do it. And so I turned my head, and he thought I was snoozing, and I looked over, and his eyeballs were like that big. Like I was like, Loads, you understand that you can't hear with your eyes, right? So, but yeah, it's fun to mess with people when you get them up there and because if you've never been in the front of a plane, if you've never been a pilot or whatever, especially the older ones that have 4,000 gauges that mean absolutely nothing, it's intimidating. I remember the first time I got in the plane with my dad, and I'm like, whoa, how do you even know what's what? And then after you fly it a couple times, you're like, well, half this stuff we don't even need. Just like the oil pressure, water temperature gauge in the sprint cars, we don't need those either. So it's kind of like that. So, but it's still pretty fun, and we still enjoy doing it.
Mate, it's good to catch up with you as always. Good luck this weekend. And then when you head to Marion County for Knoxville, as we get closer and closer to the NOS Energy Drink Knoxville Nationals, presented by Casey's. Say hi to all the fam for me, mate, and I'll see you soon, all right?
All right, Wade, thanks for having me.
Appreciate all your time, Donny. So cool to catch up with Donny Schatz in the Chevy from this point on until who knows when. I know there's a lot of excitement, a lot of ripple effect going on with that. Get around Knoxville Raceway, folks. Going to be an incredible year. The Outlaws are coming, not this weekend, the weekend after. It's going to be an absolute beauty. See you next time, everybody.